evening in a suburban shopping mall, the kind of place where families wandered from store to store with bags in hand. Amid the chatter of shoppers and the faint echo of a piano playing from a distant kiosk, a young mother led her 6-year-old son into the restroom. The boy was restless, tugging at her sleeve, eager to return to the toy store they had just left. She guided him to the far end of the restroom and waited by the sinks while he slipped into a stall. She scrolled her phone absent-mindedly, listening for the sound of the lock clicking shut. Moments passed. She heard the flush. She expected him to emerge quickly, as he always did. But the door never opened. She knocked gently, calling his name. No answer. And when she pushed the stall open, it was empty. Every parent knows the fear of losing sight of their child, even for a few seconds. It's the kind of dread that paralyzes you, filling your mind with scenarios you don't want to imagine. For the young mother, panic came fast. She checked under every stall, heart racing, praying her son was simply hiding or playing a prank. Nothing. The restroom was silent, the air heavy with the smell of disinfectant and damp paper towels. She ran to the entrance, scanning the hallway outside. Shoppers moved casually past, unaware of her desperation. She shouted her son's name, her voice trembling, but no small figure came running toward her. Something wasn't right. She had been standing at the sinks the entire time. There was no way he could have left without her noticing. She ran back inside, frantic now, searching for any clue. That's when she noticed it. One of the stall doors was locked from the inside. She bent down, expecting to see shoes, but there was nothing. With trembling hands, she crawled to the next stall. Again, the door was locked. Again, no feet visible below. She moved from stall to stall, each one inexplicably secured, each one empty beneath. Her voice broke as she cried out, demanding whoever was inside to open up. No answer came, only the faint creak of hinges moving, as if the locked doors were swaying gently on their own. Then she saw it, a small handprint smeared across the mirror above the sinks. The height was unmistakable. It was her son's. But as she reached for it, the print slowly began to fade before her eyes, dissolving into nothing. What would you have done in her place? Would you have run for help immediately, or stayed, convinced your child was still just steps away? The mother couldn't leave. She felt certain her son was still there, trapped somehow in this restroom that seemed to shift and twist with every glance. She pounded on the stalls again, screaming his name, her voice raw with fear. The lights flickered violently, buzzing louder with each flash. For the briefest second, she saw him, her son, standing at the far end of the restroom, eyes wide, lips moving as though calling for her. She sprinted toward him, arms outstretched. But when the lights steadied again, the space was empty. Only the echo of her own footsteps remained. Desperation took over. She pulled at every locked stall door, slamming her shoulder against them, determined to break one open. Nothing gave way. The restroom seemed to absorb her screams, swallowing the sound before it could reach the hallway outside. And then she heard it, a child's laughter. Faint, hollow, but undeniably familiar. It drifted from the vents above, as though carried from somewhere deeper within the building. She climbed onto the counter, straining to peer into the shadows above, her hands trembling as she gripped the cold metal grates. The laughter grew louder, distorted, echoing as though dozens of children were laughing at once. The sound filled her head until she clapped her hands over her ears. When it stopped, silence crashed down. She lowered herself back to the floor, gasping. On the mirror, new handprints appeared, small, countless, pressed against the glass from the other side. Her strength finally gave out. She stumbled toward the restroom door, determined to escape and find help. But when she pushed it open, her heart sank. The hallway was gone. In its place stretched another row of stalls, identical to the ones she had just left behind. The restroom had folded in on itself, trapping her in a maze of endless doors. Somewhere in the distance, her son's voice called out, clear, urgent, terrified. She ran toward it, her footsteps echoing endlessly, the sound of doors slamming shut behind her one by one. If you had been that mother, would you have left the restroom to find help, or stayed inside searching until the very end? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like this video if you're still with me, because the next story will take you even deeper into fear. It was late evening at a highway rest stop, the kind of place most drivers only visit out of necessity. Bright fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering every few seconds. The restroom was nearly empty, except for one man who stepped inside, unaware of the silent terror waiting within. Think about it for a moment. Have you ever pulled into a quiet restroom on a long trip, hoping just to get in and out quickly? Maybe you felt uneasy, glancing under the stalls, noticing shoes, and wondering about the strangers just feet away. The man chose the far stall. As the door latched shut, he heard something, a faint scraping sound. It was steady, deliberate, and coming from the next stall over. He froze. No flushing, no hand movements, just scraping against metal. He leaned down, cautiously peeking under the divider. A pair of shoes faced directly toward him, motionless. But here's the part that unsettled him most. Those shoes hadn't moved at all since he entered. What was that sound? And why were they waiting so still? Minutes passed. The silence pressed heavier than the stale air. He coughed loudly, half expecting the person to shift, to acknowledge him. Nothing. Then, the scraping started again, slower this time, like someone dragging metal across tile. He considered leaving, but the latch on his stall now felt stuck. He pulled harder. It didn't budge. He whispered to himself, "Don't panic." But from the other stall, a whisper answered, mimicking his exact words. The man froze in place, his own voice echoing back at him from just a few feet away. Heart pounding, he shoved the stall door with all his strength. It rattled but held firm. He looked down again, the shoes were gone. And yet, the whispering continued, now louder, as if it came from above him. What would you have done in that moment? Would you have screamed for help? Or stayed quiet, hoping it would all end? Let me know in the comments. And if this story has your heart racing already, hit that like button so we can continue. It was well past midnight when Clara ducked into the restroom of an old bus terminal downtown. The building was nearly abandoned at that hour, its tiled corridors echoing faintly with the hum of vending machines. She had been waiting for a delayed bus for over an hour and finally gave in to the need to use the restroom. As she pushed open the heavy door, a draft of cold, stagnant air hit her face. The lights inside flickered weakly, casting pale shadows across cracked mirrors and rust-stained sinks. It felt like a room forgotten by time, left behind while the rest of the station tried to appear alive. She stepped cautiously across the damp floor, the squeak of her shoes oddly loud against the emptiness. The stalls stretched in a line, all closed, but one in the far corner hung slightly ajar. A dark shadow seemed to fill the gap beneath it. Clara hesitated. Something in her gut told her not to go further, but she reassured herself. It's just another passenger. Nothing unusual. With that thought, she walked inside, the door creaking shut behind her. Have you ever used a restroom that made you instantly uneasy? The kind where every instinct whispers, "Leave now," but you force yourself to stay because it's just silly nerves? Clara knew that feeling too well in that moment. She tried to focus on the ordinary, peeling paint, the faint drip from a leaky faucet, but her mind wouldn't let her relax. She kept stealing glances under the stalls, trying to convince herself that everything was normal. Her heart skipped when she spotted something unusual. A long, rusted key lay just outside her stall door. Its teeth were jagged, its bow heavy and tarnished with age. She reached down slowly, fingertips brushing against the cold metal. Who would drop a key in a place like this? And why did it feel strangely deliberate, placed where only she would notice it? Curiosity gnawed at her. Clara picked up the key, turning it over in her hand. It wasn't like any house or locker key she'd ever seen. Thick, almost industrial, it looked more suited for a gate or a padlock than anything in a bus terminal. Just as she slipped it into her pocket, she heard it, the faint squeal of a cart's wheels echoing through the hallway outside. The sound grew louder, closer, until it stopped just beyond the restroom door. Then came the jingle of more keys, dozens, clattering like metal teeth biting against one another. The restroom door creaked open, followed by slow, deliberate footsteps. Someone pushed the door shut behind them, the latch clicking into place. Clara froze in silence, holding her breath. Whoever it was, they weren't in any hurry. The sound of shoes shuffled across the wet floor, heading deeper into the stalls. Her eyes darted toward the crack in her stall door. A shadow passed slowly across the gap, broad, hunched, dragging something heavy along the floor. What would you have done if you were in Clara's place? Would you have stayed silent, praying they would leave, or would you have burst out, hoping to escape before they noticed you? The footsteps stopped just outside her stall. She could see a shape now through the narrow crack, an older man, uniform faintly visible under the flickering light. His keys jingled as he shifted, one by one, testing the stall doors. First the one beside her, then the next. Slowly, methodically, he moved down the line. Clara's stomach twisted. Was this just the janitor? If so, why was he checking each stall like he was searching for someone? And why did he pause so long at each door, as if listening for signs of life within? Her hand trembled as she gripped the old key in her pocket. A thought raced through her mind. Was this key his? And if it was, why did she feel like he'd been waiting for her to pick it up? The man's hand landed on her stall door, rattling it gently. Clara held her breath, pressing herself against the back wall, praying the lock would hold. He jiggled the latch, then stopped. A silence stretched between them, thick, suffocating, unbearable. Then came a sound that sent chills down her spine. He whispered through the crack, his voice gravelly and slow. "You found it, didn't you?" Clara's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to run, but fear pinned her in place. The man's shadow loomed larger, blocking what little light filtered into the stall. He tapped the door lightly, like knocking on a coffin lid. Suddenly he laughed, a low, broken sound, and moved away. She heard the squeal of his cart again, rolling toward the exit. The door creaked open, then slammed shut. Silence returned. Clara stayed frozen for what felt like an eternity before daring to breathe again. But when she finally looked down, she noticed something horrifying. The old key she'd hidden in her pocket, it was gone. Her hands shook as she searched frantically, but the pocket was empty. The key had simply vanished, as if it had never been there. Panic surged through her chest. Had he taken it? Or had it never truly belonged to her in the first place? Clara pushed the stall door open cautiously, scanning the room. Every stall now stood ajar, their doors swaying slightly as if someone had passed through each one. She crept to the sinks, staring into the cracked mirror. Behind her reflection stood the man, closer than she could have imagined, his eyes fixed on hers through the broken glass. And dangling from his fingers was the very same key. If you had found that key, would you have picked it up or left it where it was? Comment below with your thoughts. And if this story unsettled you, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. It was a Friday night when Marcus stopped at a gas station on the outskirts of town. The neon sign flickered faintly, buzzing in the stillness of the empty lot. Inside, the clerk sat half asleep behind the counter, barely acknowledging him as he asked for the restroom key. The key was attached to a heavy wooden block, worn smooth by countless hands before his. The clerk slid it across the counter with a tired grunt. Marcus stepped back outside, following the cracked pavement around the building toward a small metal door marked restroom. The lock clicked loudly as he turned the key. A wave of damp, earthy air rushed out as the door creaked open. He expected the usual tiled walls and harsh lighting. Instead, the narrow staircase descended into darkness. The restroom, it seemed, was underground. Have you ever opened a door expecting one thing, only to find something entirely different? That jolt of wrongness that makes your stomach tighten? Marcus hesitated at the top of the stairs. He told himself it was fine. Some buildings just had odd layouts. Maybe the restroom had been renovated, maybe this was just how it was designed. Still, the air felt wrong, stale, thick, carrying the faint scent of mildew and rust. He flicked the light switch on the wall. A single bulb buzzed weakly to life, casting a sickly yellow glow. Shadows stretched long down the concrete steps. He tightened his grip on the wooden block and began to descend. Each footstep echoed sharply, as though the space beneath the building was far larger than it should have been. At the bottom of the stairs, Marcus found the restroom, or something that resembled one. The stalls were ancient, doors hanging crookedly from rusted hinges. Cracks split the concrete walls, water seeping slowly down their jagged lines. He moved cautiously, the echo of his own breathing unnervingly loud. Several stalls stood open, revealing broken toilets and pools of stagnant water. One stall at the very end was closed, its door firmly shut. Marcus felt the familiar discomfort of being watched, though the room was otherwise silent. He tried to shake it off, telling himself to hurry. But as he turned to leave, a sound froze him in place. From behind the closed stall came the slow, rhythmic creak of someone rocking back and forth. What would you have done in Marcus's place? Would you have investigated or rushed back up the stairs, never looking back? Marcus's instincts told him to leave, but something about the sound drew him closer, step by step, until he stood just outside the final stall. He reached out, hand trembling, and nudged the door with the wooden block. It didn't budge. The rocking stopped. For a moment, silence filled the underground chamber. Then, faintly, a voice whispered from behind the door, "Give it back." Marcus's chest tightened. He didn't understand. He hadn't taken anything. But the voice came again, louder, closer. "Give it back." Fear surged through him. He stumbled backward, the wooden block clattering against the floor. The door rattled violently, hinges screeching as though something inside was trying to force its way out. Marcus sprinted toward the stairs, heart pounding. But when he reached the top, the door he had entered through was gone. The wall was solid concrete, unbroken, sealing him inside. The light flickered, then went out, plunging him into darkness. He fumbled for his phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam cut through the black, illuminating the stalls. Every single door was now closed, and from behind each one, voices whispered in unison, low, demanding, insistent. "Give it back." Marcus backed away, the whispers rising to a deafening chorus. The beam of his flashlight shook across the cracked walls until it landed on something he hadn't noticed before. A pile of wooden blocks, identical to the one he had carried, stacked high in the corner. Each block bore a restroom key, corroded with age. There weren't just a few, there were dozens, maybe hundreds. The voices grew louder, pressing in from every side. He dropped his phone in panic, its light spinning wildly across the floor. The last thing he saw was the nearest stall door slowly swinging open, revealing nothing but blackness within. The door slammed shut. His screams echoed once, then silence consumed the underground restroom. Would you have dared to step into that basement, or would you have walked away the moment you saw those stairs? Let me know your answer in the comments, and if these stories left you unsettled, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next one.